Successful people are selfish. I've heard different variations of that sentence time and time again throughout my life and throughout my journey of becoming successful. And of course, success is relative. I'm still nowhere near where I want to be, but I'm a hell of a lot further than I was when I was younger. And a big part of the reason why that is because somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that that statement that I started this video with, successful people are selfish, was false. And in this video, I want to convince you as well that that statement is not only false, but it's literally the opposite of the actual truth, which is that more often than not, it is unsuccessful people who are the most selfish. Let me explain. And first of all, before I explain, if you want to be successful, you need to understand that these kinds of beliefs are literally going to prevent you from ever doing it. They're going to prevent you from ever doing it. And to an extent, different variations of this belief are actually the reason why I'm not more successful than I am. Because there was a point in time when I thought that in order to become successful, you had to essentially manipulate people. You had to exploit people. And that's a really, really damaging belief to have, especially if you're somebody who is looking to cultivate an audience, cultivate a community rather, and serve those people to the best possible extent that you can. It's not an empowering belief to have. But in order to overcome a limiting belief like that one, you have to find an adequate substitute and convince yourself that that adequate substitute is, well, adequate. But I'm going to do that work for you in this video. So why is it that unsuccessful people are actually selfish and successful people, rich people, are not only unselfish, but are generally very altruistic in a sense? Even if they may seem greedy, they're still much more giving than your average unsuccessful person. Well, first of all, we need to understand basic economics. Economics is as simple as this one statement right here. Supply and demand. It's not even a full sentence. Supply and demand. That concept right there literally underpins anything relating to economics and the exchange of value. The exchange of value, because ultimately, what is money? When we talk about success, more often than not, money is at least part of that definition of success for most people. So, money is a medium of value. It's a medium which allows us to equalize value and exchange it accordingly. So, in order to have a lot of money, you have to provide a lot of value. It's impossible to have a lot of money without providing a lot of value unless you scam people. If you're scamming, if you're robbing, then of course you're not providing value. But I would also argue that those people, although they have a lot of money, aren't really successful. They're not really successful because true success is defined by who you become in the process of being the person who can give the value. In the process of being able to give people value, you are going to become somebody who is valuable. That's true success because you can lose everything that you have and you can get it right back because you are this person. You are a valuable person who can command the exchange of value because you have value to provide. And that word right there, provide, leads me into my first point about why successful people are actually more altruistic than unsuccessful people. Is that successful people become successful because they provide massive amounts of value. They supply what people demand. That's the only way to get rich legally, is to supply what people demand and request an exchange of value for that. In this case, currency. You see, something that I realized throughout my YouTube journey is that it's not about what videos you want to make. If you want to be successful on YouTube, for example, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is that they make the videos that they want to make. And that's not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, unless it comes at the expense of making the videos that people want to watch. When there's a discrepancy between the two, if you want to be successful, you have to prioritize what people want to watch or what people can garner the most value from. Because something that I've also realized as of late is that giving people what they want and providing value are not necessarily the same thing. Let's say, for example, a health food store versus a candy store. The health food store is more valuable than the candy store, but the candy store is giving people what they want. It's catering to their desire for dopamine. So there can be a discrepancy between these things, but ideally, if you can combine the two, then you can provide massive value and give people what they want. And that's where you develop the capacity to change the world for the better. But generally speaking, when it comes to being successful, it's primarily about giving people what they want. So if you make content that people want to watch, you cannot be selfish. It's literally impossible for you to be selfish in that regard because you are dedicating your life, you're dedicating your time to delivering a service. In this case, it's the content. You're delivering a service or product that people can benefit from, even if that only benefit that they receive is just entertainment in that moment, making their days a little bit better. You can't be selfish by definition because you are primarily focused on giving, whereas the content creators who don't make it, generally, when this discrepancy exists, choose to create the content that they want to create. And that's selfish. That is intrinsically selfish. And of course, they're not going to receive results because they're not participating in this game of the exchange of value. You have to be able to provide some degree of value. And again, the market determines what is valuable. So if they decide that public interviews are valuable, then you have to be willing to provide them with that. If that's what they want specifically from you as well, that's another nuance you need to consider, is that what the market wants from me might not be what the market wants from you. So once you determine what the market wants from you, you have to be willing to provide that, or you're not going to be successful. In other words, you can't be selfish and be successful. You can't. This is a wall that I've run into many, many times throughout my YouTube journey. And I tried to escape it. I tried to go into writing. I tried to pursue all of these different endeavors thinking that I could escape this principle. And then I realized there's no escaping it because it's, again, a foundational philosophy within economics, at least free market economics. Supply and demand. You have to give the people what they want. And if you don't do that, you are not going to get what you want. In other words, when somebody is unsuccessful, when somebody is broke, when they don't have money, when they're not making money, especially for a prolonged period of time, what this means is that they are not providing value in the marketplace. They're not contributing. In order to make money, you have to contribute. You have to give in order to receive. You have to transform people's lives so they'll transfer money into your account. Because ultimately, all of the money that you want is in other people's bank accounts. Be it potential customers and clients, or maybe in the case of YouTube, advertisers' pockets. But you have to provide value. In the case of YouTube, with the advertisers, it's providing them with a platform to advertise their products and services. That's the value that you're providing. And you do that by garnering an audience. But in order to garner an audience, you have to give people what they want. You have to create the content that they want to watch. So again, you cannot be successful, just foundationally. You cannot be successful and be selfish at the same time. It's just not possible. And then let's take it a step further and go into scaling. This right here is something that I truly wish I had grasped and internalized when I was younger. Because again, if I had understood this principle, this one principle I'm about to share with you right now, I could have been on the moon right now, success wise. I could have been much further along than I currently am. And I'm grateful to be where I am, but I could and should be a lot further. But I lacked this information. And now I'm about to give it to you for free 99. A lot of people, when it comes to scaling, once they've mastered the initial component of success, which is providing value in the marketplace, when it comes time to scale, the selfishness kicks in again. Now, instead of it being about them creating content that they want to create versus creating content that other people want to consume, or content that could benefit a specific kind of clientele who they would then convert into paying customers, instead of thinking about that, now the issue becomes, well, I'm making this amount of money and I want to keep as much of it as possible. So I'm not going to hire people. I'm not going to distribute my earnings to other people who could potentially help me scale. And this is a very flawed line of thinking. And this is the line of thinking that I myself fell victim to for most of my YouTube career. Because I truly believed that I could do it on my own. And I'm here to tell you that you cannot do it on your own. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your work ethic is like. Listen, I'm building this coaching program, link in the description. I'm building this coaching program with my business partner. I am working harder than I've ever worked in my entire life. And I wouldn't be surprised if he is as well. There's only 24 hours in a day. And you need at least some sleep. And you also need to take care of your basic hygienic needs. You need to eat, things like that. So you don't have enough time in the day to do everything that it takes to get to that next level, because it takes a lot more than you think to get to that next level. But that's besides the point here. I'm going on a tangent. You have to be willing to sacrifice a portion of the pie in order to make the pie bigger. Let me repeat that, just in case you weren't listening. You have to be willing to sacrifice a portion of the pie in order to make the pie bigger. Let's say you're making $3,000 a month, and to hire an editor, it would cost you $1,000 a month. I was in this exact position, by the way. It would have probably cost me somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 per month in order to hire an editor, and I was making around $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. And I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Why? Because I wanted to keep as much of my money as possible. Very flawed line of thinking, looking back on it. And it's obvious to me now, but maybe it's not obvious to you yet. So let me break this down for you. By hiring an editor who could edit videos much better than I could, because by now you've probably realized that I don't even really edit my videos much at all. By hiring an editor who could edit my videos much better than I did when I was creating content that the market wanted from me. So when self-improvement content was the content that my audience wanted to consume from me specifically, I could have capitalized on that moment and scaled my channel into oblivion, into perpetuity. I could have kept scaling, exponential growth. But instead, I wanted to keep that $1,500 a month. $2,000 a month. Let's say $3,000 a month. Let's say I had to pay all of my money to this editor, $3,000 a month. If paying the editor $3,000 a month could help me scale my income, the overall income, to $10,000 a month, I would still be making $7,000 and they'd be making $3,000. So in other words, I'd still be making double what I was already making. But because I didn't want to invest in my brand, I didn't want to invest in a business, in my business that is, I suffered the consequences. The pie was small. I got all of it, but the pie was about this big. And what I found is that it's better to have a piece of a pie that is this big than it is to have a whole pie that's this big. Because a piece of this pie is going to be bigger than the entirety of this pie. But my selfishness when I was younger didn't allow me to see that. And of course, part of this was because I had put myself in a situation where I needed every single penny of that $3,000. But I've already talked at great length about that, some of the financial mistakes I've made in the past in prior videos. So I'm not even going to go there. But the point that I'm making is that selfishness, or the temptations of selfishness, are present at every level of success. But the people that you see who are exceedingly successful got there because they were able to stave off the temptation of selfishness at every single level of their growth, of their ascension.